minutes left here, 7-6 left. Freiburg goes for the kill, he's going to pick it up. If just exists survives, he's going to win the round, there's no time. Oh my God, Freiburg, are you kidding me? Because of it, Freiburg is going to be winning.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of By the Numbers CSGO. Of course, I'm your host Richard Lewis. With me as always is the other half of the package. It is of course Duncan Foreign Shields. How are you doing, Duncan? We haven't done a show for a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? So I think one of the problems that I noticed, because I actually noticed this in general with shows, Richard, is that when it's leading up to Christmas, it always feels like, oh, everything's taking forever at Christmas. And Christmas is time you usually cancel some of the shows or you can't do one. So then afterwards, I mean, obviously, like 1 week after Christmas, you meant to just be back to normal. But you're like, oh, are we doing a show this week? I thought we're not just having this week off as well. And then eventually they're like, you do know it's like almost February now, like you have to start doing work again.
Yeah.
We're like, okay.
Fucking Skrilla though, right?
Yeah, I know. Back that Brinks track up to the back of my fucking house where the old coal shed used to be, and fill that with Skrilla. And by the way, fuck anyone else in this industry. That's all my Skrilla. As I said to the young orphan children who came asking for coppers at Christmas time, I said again, it's not Christmas time. Now get the fuck out of here and play an overdraft, you little bastard.
So it's good. That was pretty good insight. Well
I know, right?
You brought it back around to it being a real corporate plug, which I liked. So yeah, look, obviously I'm still in LA at the moment. I'm kind of doing esports consultancy work, which is basically telling people who don't know about esports why they need to give me Skrilla and invest in esports. So for example, last night I was drinking with a dude called Darren. He got so drunk he couldn't even pitch his product. He didn't even remember what it had. His pitch was he sort of spilt a drink on himself and said, dude, I'm fucked up, but I'll get at you. And off he went. Good pitch.
Okay, yeah.
And then the night finished with me drinking with a female yoga instructor who thinks that yoga could be the next big thing in esports. I'm inclined to agree. She was very flexible. So
that's how you know you're in California there, Richard.
Yeah, for real. It's fucking crazy out here. Anyway, so
see, when you said esports consultancy, I'm glad to find it actually is like real consultancy. Like you're telling people what they can do with their jobs or if they want to hire you. Because there's this old school version of esports consultancy where people who were like irrelevant journalists in like 2008 and stuff used to go around to other companies and just fuck over everyone else in esports and say, don't hire that guy. Yeah, don't work with him. Just on like petty differences, you know. So, but luckily,
I did hear
about. We've gotten rid of. We've like really. What we've essentially done is we've managed to kind of like separate the wheat from the chaff on that one. We've slashed a lot of the shite like that out of the industry, and then they're just off on well, who cares where they are? We're moving on anyway to relevance.
I don't think we are, baby. I think we're going to come right back to this a little bit later, but I think we should open up with some CS Go news. We've got to go back quite a way for this one, but I did want to pick your brains about it. I watched your YouTube video, your Thorin's thoughts about it. The Titan collapse, basically the Titan organization finally deciding enough's enough and getting rid of their CSGO team, which had been perennial underachievers, and of course blaming that the cheating scandal with Kelly for sponsors not re-signing with them. So what do you make of all of this?
I mean, on that part, that was the part that here's what's weird. Obviously, I've even said in the past, the Titan lineup that had Kenny S in existence, one of my favorite lineups. A lot of the Very Games lineups I really enjoyed watching play. So I've always liked that team, liked a lot of the members of the team. And as a result, what I found weird was the main message of the like post saying they're closing down should obviously have been like, oh, how sad it is that this team that's accomplished a lot and had some very memorable players is shutting down. So obviously I did feel that way, but I have to say, the fact that they did so strongly emphasize the Kaylee thing as though that's why they like had to go, that did seem a little bit distasteful actually, because as far as I can tell, being someone in the industry, there's no way that really could have affected like the next year and a half of the industry. Okay, maybe the first period of time, but I mean, a year and a half's a long time in esports. So, well, it just seemed a bit implausible that it was that really killed them dead. Maybe that was a little bit of a setback, but I suspect the team becoming pretty shit helped them decide to close the whole thing down. If let's say the French shuffle thing that happened in the middle of the year. Let's say they'd gone a different way with that. Because remember, one of the options was Shocks takes over. That was kind of the coup d'etat that was trying to happen in Envious. Let's say Shocks takes over and they kick out Happy. And you know what, off the top of my head, let's just say Happy and Kiyoshima get kicked out. Then they go over to Envious. There's a wicked couple of players, a Titan rather. There's some wicked players, in-game leader even. You can set everything. So if that team becomes a top elite level team, do they just shut everything out and go, oh, well, Kaylee, mate, Kaylee a year ago's fucked us? Like, seems a bit implausible. I think the fact that they had no teams left, as far as I can tell, that were really good.
Yeah, I mean, basically what happened, and I'm about to publish something about this over on Breitbart, because I think it's ridiculous that if the lie is allowed to stand. This is a time of unparalleled and unprecedented investment in esports. The idea that if Titan were handling their business correctly, they couldn't get someone to sponsor a team of that caliber is absurd, frankly. And to blame the cheating incident as a reason why sponsors wouldn't re-sign, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. If a sponsor has told them that, then the sponsor's lying, and it's really about the team not performing, or there's a better offer out there, a better return of investment. The reality is that ever since Titan came into the fucking space, they haven't really known what they're doing. And I think that was evidenced by the fact they paid well over the odds initially for this team when they first picked it up in 2013 to outbid Alliance, who they were in talks with. They put a team house down straight there, like as if it was the de facto way to go. And for me, I think the jury's still out on team houses. I've been in a lot of team houses. Don't know how I feel about them, frankly. But that's a separate issue. So they put a team house down, crazy amounts of money for the time. And then what the big mistake, I think, is sentimentality. And you know how I feel about this. Sentimentality in business, it shouldn't happen. And Existence hasn't been capable for large chunks of his playing career in that lineup. And this idea about him being like a great in-game leader and somehow it's going to carry him through, we're starting to see that the days of in-game leaders that cannot make an impact on a scoreboard are over. Now, you've got Kevin going out and saying, well, I'm not going to retire until we win a major. Can't win a major with you, though, Kevin. So how do we work this out? And that's where a manager has to come in and say, Kev, you'll win your major, but you're doing it as a coach. Meanwhile, they've always had a coach that isn't really a coach, more of a GB James type, Mighty Duck speeches at halftime and fucking cups of coffee and is everyone all right today? And that's great, I guess. That's one way to do it. But clearly this team had huge tactical problems, particularly with its CT sides at times in its career. And they would have benefited from a capable and fresh pair of eyes. So then on top of that, you've got the fact that then the guy from Titan, I think he was actually going around looking to either expand into League of Legends, which was done in a very clumsy fashion and put a few people's nose out of joint. And then I think it was at that point he just wanted to simply sell up. He dumped a bunch of money into it. Think about the Scream deal, for fuck's sake. 150,000 for one fucking... you know what I mean? For one player, of which 75,000 has been paid. I think the other 75,000 was deferred or delayed. That's what some people were saying. So whether that gets paid now or not, don't know. But yeah, it just seems to be really... Titan was basically proof that if you throw enough money at a project and you're not ruthless about it and you don't micromanage it, it will always fucking fail, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and the other general thing I had in the video was the one area I do feel sympathy for them is that when they did buy into Titan, they thought they were buying the best team in the world because that's what it was on paper. But you see, piece by piece, it all went to shit. And unfortunately, the way it went to shit, they couldn't even have predicted. Because what people forget is, yeah, we all know now Titan never made any major round of eights and all that sort of thing. But you have to remember that when they bought them was when only the first major had happened and they made the semi-finals. So you're thinking to yourself, I'm buying like a world-class team. Maybe this team's going to be the best team in the world next year. So they obviously never got anything close to that. And it did gradually go downhill worse and worse. And then, unfortunately for them, again, like the problem with this is some of the moves that happened obviously aren't organizational because at that point in time, contracts weren't as stiff. So, for example, that whole French shuffle thing that went down like 3/4 of the way into the year, I mean, they couldn't have known that had happened or they'd be on the losing end of it. And so that sort of stuff, I do feel sympathy for them. Like they obviously got that's why I said they kind of got shortchanged, I felt, in terms of what they actually got from the team. But like you're saying here as well, they also essentially just left the team to their own devices and lost as a result. So I mean, it's certainly problematic.
So, I mean, we talk about where next for them. I've had several high-profile organizations contact me and ask if I can act as, an intermediary between the two parties. So they're definitely going to fall on their feet. The real question for me is, though, with E-League being the way it is, and obviously that's where everyone wants to get now on CSGO, realistically, they need to get into an organization that's going to be in E-League. So it would be criminal if they weren't competing in it. Now, this actually gives them very limited options. And certainly my understanding is, the Team Secret guy who tweeted at them publicly, I don't think they're necessarily going to be affiliated with E-League. I don't know if they've had any talks. They weren't at any of the meetings I've been at. I don't know if they're going to come in at the last minute or whatever. But Team Secret offering them a spot would be kind of short-sighted because obviously there's limited places in this televised league for Turner.
I've got to say, though, one thing about this that I don't like is here's the thing. On one hand, I realize why to E-League they want to work with organizations, because they're thinking to themselves, right, well, these organizations are established and we know what we're getting into here. And this guy knows about business and he'll understand, they're used to the NA sports model, which is your franchises. The problem is, it is actually going to literally mean the league is worse than it needs to be, because we see there are already teams who have a spot and had no players and just put together a team like, no, here's, I've got a real team, don't worry about that. Here's my team. Should we bother looking into the past of him? Don't bother, mate. They're my team, don't worry about it. There you go. Brilliant guys, aren't they? Meanwhile, a lineup like this, which obviously is going to be better than half of the fucking E-League, you'd think they'd go to the core of the team and go, right, if you can find an org, we've got a spot for you here in E-League. You'd think it'd work that way around with cases like this. But sadly, I think it's in line with what you're saying, actually. It's more like they've just given the orgs the spots. And then now it's almost the opposite way. Like now, if anything, Titan might have two offers. One might be better on paper, but the other one might be, we've got the E-League spot, though. And then you have to go with that one instead, don't you? Because it wants to be left on the outside.
But here's the problem with it, right? So the only reason this happened and affected European teams is because of everyone trying to fucking strong arm Turner. Yep. And all the it's the European organizations that were like, well, we want fucking this, that, the other, all this extra stuff. So we're not going to commit to E-League. Meanwhile, the American organizations, and some of them really, really new and young in the space, have seized the opportunity to come into Turner because, like, what else are you going to do in America? Do you know what I mean? What else is there, right? So they're like, no, we really want to do this. We'll commit. They've been gracious and professional. Meanwhile, you've got this, cartel of European team owners trying to strong arm one of the biggest TV networks in the world. It just seems ridiculous that we're potentially going to end up with, like you say, teams like that deserve to be in E-League, and they're not going to be there because of team owners, not because the players don't deserve it, not because the players weren't welcome to come into the spot, but because team organizations were looking at ways that they could maximize profits from this opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, because like you're saying here, the thing is, in fact, there's almost no way you could make this league and it not make sense for the Titan core to be in there. Because actually, what's funny is, as sad as it is, once the org started to go to shit and basically the team was supposedly shit, they actually performed a bit better. Like they had the okay result at the CEVO tournament where they managed to get into the playoffs. At this last tournament, Star Ladder, they're one of the few teams that no one talked about because they did go out in last place, but they actually won a map off Fnatic, which is fucking Inferno, which is like one of Fnatic's best maps. Sure, you look at that and go, well, Fnatic was playing badly, but people aren't winning that many off them, so they're not that terrible a team, and especially in a world where we know half the E-League is going to be these like NA teams that, like, some of them, man, some of these lineups are dog shit, man. So say what you want about Titan if you're an NA fan, they'd beat the shit out of some of these teams, mate.
Oh, for real, yeah. For real. And look, here's the thing that I think we're going to have to rapidly get used to. Is the first season of E-League, is it going to be the dream that it was when it was first pitched, where it literally is all the best teams in the world? It probably isn't going to be that now. But that's not because of Turner. That's not because of WME, IMG, or anyone that was handling the negotiations. It's not because of the players. It's not because of the talent. It's not because of Face It. It's not because of all the people that have been involved so far. It's simply the organizations were holding out, and this thing's got to launch soon. So like you can't you negotiations can only go on for so long, right? Before you reach an impasse, and you have to do what's best to get the ball rolling. Now, here's the thing: I don't know how it's going to work for future seasons, but I know we're locked in for at least 2 seasons this year, probably more moving forward. So the teams and the orgs that are missed out now, I think they come later and want a fucking seat at the table, and I don't know how you factor them in. Do you expand the league? Do you have a promotion and relegation, which we know Americans don't really like, and the organizations who've invested and got there first, they're going to want to protect their investment. Why the fuck should I get relegated? I was here at the start. Get relegated so fucking, Navi or whatever can come in. Fuck off. That actually isn't fair. So it's become way more complex than it should have been, considering every team owner was saying, less than 2 years ago, I'd kill to be in a televised league. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be amazing if there was some fucking league where all our teams could play against each other on television and represent esports? Wouldn't that be amazing? Then when it came along, they were like, yeah, but how do we get paid? And that, what the fuck, right? So yeah, I think we're going to have to accept that there's going to be some teams in there that maybe don't represent the highest echelons of Counter-Strike, but I'd never begrudge them the position, because at least they did the right thing from the start. They weren't trying to fucking hold out for handouts or whatever.
Yeah, so my bigger concern there is that, I mean, it just seems like a lot of the E-League's going to be fucked for that reason at the moment. And then also, I mean, I don't want to think too far in the future, but man, I tell you what, if the E-League only lasts 1 year, let's say after they do the 2 seasons, they run it and they go, you know what, we just, like a TV show. It was okay, but we decided not to renew it for the next year. I will make a video where I tear the asshole open of like half the fucking European orgs if they actually just let that league get wrecked just by not even competing in it. That's so stupid.
Yeah. But I mean, you think about it, right? Like all these people, and again, we get back to the old boys club that we were joking about at the start of the show. All these people talk about how they go around and represent esports, right? And they do it best. The only thing that these people represent is them fucking selves and their bank balance. You want to know who's fucking representing esports? It's dumb motherfuckers like me and you who have turned down paychecks, that have let principals stand, that have fucking had our careers like stretched paper thin when we should have had a fairly fucking straight curve of success. We should have been right. We should be way further along than what we are, and it's all predicated on principles and not playing backroom politics. All of the people that fucking said, that are saying right now, I don't even think we need TV to be successful. They sold out and got on TV at the first fucking opportunity. How's that representing esports if we've all arrived at the opposite conclusion just 4 or 5 years later?
And these are all the same people, by the way, the ones we're referring to now, where if you ever dare suggest to them face to face that maybe that was unethical, the way they promoted like a dog shit league that actually ruined the scene and killed all North American Counter-Strike, they'll literally be like, hey man, I had to feed my family. Which, by the way, as just an edgy point, Rich, I have to say, okay, you ready for some edge? You're not going to know which way I'm going to take this.
No, it's a bit early in the morning out in LA, but go on.
Okay. So when people say, yeah, but I had to feed my family, I actually really do think, call me a bad guy. I think to myself, so because you didn't use a condom and came inside the woman you love, now I have to put up with you fucking ruining esports. Great. Feed him spam, you cunt. It got us through a war.
It's pretty edgy.
Pretty good, right?
You are effectively telling these people like they should have pulled the fuck out, basically, like pull out game week.
If they were going to use it as an excuse, I mean, at the end of the day, I would want my kid to just eat like really basic food, but go, my daddy has principles and isn't a fucking cunt who killed and murdered all of his friends' careers just so I could have the best fish finger brand. See, my kid would be fucking a baller, mate. I'd have him locked in.
I don't know about that. I love you and all, but the idea of you having a kid is just too terrifying. Please let the Thor in line.
Let's face it, Richard.
Die out gracefully, brother.
Obviously, what I've said there is ridiculous. He would never say that because, for a start off, that was in an English accent. It was in English. Instead, he would say something and it'd be in subtitles. So it could be in Korean. Obviously, what he'd actually be saying is, tell me more about my daddy. When is he coming this year? Yeah. I'd be like, listen, young Squill Lord.
Yeah.
How do you name, by the way? Yeah, young Skrill Lord.
Dear Alpha Draft, I am now 18 and still haven't seen my dad. When will he stop working in the Skrilla mine? You know, it's fucking unreal. But anyway, yeah, I like it's so, you know, look, you got team owners that the team owners get invited to these conferences. Team owners are fucking rolling around places like this, like what I'm doing now, LA, just one fucking party after another. All talking about, yeah, esports is the shit. Esports is amazing. We love fucking esports. And all they're doing is all these fucking shadowy backroom fucking deals that are designed to just line their pockets. It's got nothing to do with the sustainability or long-term goal, long-term vision of esports at all. It's about cashing the fuck out because, and I hear this a lot now, right? And you know this is bad when people start talking like this. I hear people say to me, like people whose opinion I respect, and they say, like, you all know this is a bubble, right? It's just another esports bubble. It's gonna pop. That's why I'm trying to get mine. That's why I'm trying to calculate. I don't believe we're in a fucking bubble. I think this is actually, for the first time, we've got enough money to make this shit sustainable. If I thought we were about to have another bubble and it pop, I would just quit. I would just get the fuck out now. I would literally just get the fuck out now because I've seen what happens post bubble. I've gone through 2 of them. I don't know how many you went through. At least 2, and it ain't pretty. When you have to watch all your fucking friends out of work, all the websites that you used to respect fucking shut down, all the fucking games that you cared about, just no one's playing them. Those that are dog shit. And there's just like this like 3 or 4 people that somehow just like parasites that just won't die that you picked up on some fucking holiday. You know what I mean? Like they're just fucking rolling around making whatever's left of the money in the scene. And I've seen that twice and it's fucking gross. So these people don't even believe in esports.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, that ties obviously back into the thing we were talking about before. The real reason why these EU orgs are potentially turning down being in a fucking televised American league where they get everything paid for them and super cushy is because they're thinking, well, what if that isn't here in 1 year, whereas I want to get 2 years of stuff from ESL? That's really what these guys are thinking. They don't believe in esports. They're really thinking, what happens this year? If you pay me more, then fuck the next 10 years after that. There's no building anything. Same teams will tell you, oh, I'm trying to build something. Like, here's another thing that's dirty as fuck, Rich. We'll talk about this later, I'm sure, when we talk about the TSM lineup. But whenever teams don't have the money or the fucking wherewithal to get a good team, they'll sell you the same line of dog shit. No, I'm trying to build the scene, man. You know, I'm like investing in the future. That's code for couldn't get the good players that I really wanted. Like that, no one in the history has ever said, so who could I have on my football team? Like Lionel Messi and fucking like Robin and stuff. Nah, just give me some players from the 3rd division. I want to develop some talent, mate. No one's ever fucking said that. It's never happened. But that's what people do in all areas of esports. Now, this is for the growth of the scene and all the rest of it. These people don't believe that themselves. That's why I never buy that like altruistic angle, you know.
Yeah, no, it's not real. Like you'll meet very few altruists in esports. Like I mean, just in life in general, right? Like everyone's got a fucking angle, but in esports, it's like
you do meet a lot of people in esports that are a thing that begins with A and ends in ist at the end. But that, you know,
yeah. But, I mean, alchemist, of course.
Lot of them in the Twitch chat right now, I believe.
Yeah, they make gold. They make gold from raw materials. You know, but yeah, it's you won't meet many people who have like an altruistic outlook in esports because I think like the first generation of people, the old guard, right? They actually had a good reason to want to cash out, right? Like I always let them off the hook because I saw a lot of them. You know, the ones that maybe missed the boat and what it fucking did to them. Like they put like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years into esports, didn't see a fucking penny, and then like we finally got a little bit of money. I don't know. If you can't fucking chastise a hungry man for stealing a loaf of bread, right? And I think that's what they did. And I don't really mind that quite so much. I don't mind that quite so much. The people who serially did it after they got their cash and came back and sold out again and again and again, like for real, fuck those guys. But like the first generation that did it, whatever. But now, like, we've got a generation of people that are now starting to look at fucking esports as short-term gains, right? Like it's an investment opportunity. Ugh, the language, you know what I mean? It makes me fucking sick just to say it. Investment opportunity, right? Like, no one's interested in building shit. They want to put some money in and then they want to like make a brand and then sell it for more money.
Well, just look at all these people who are the NA teams getting the teams for tournament now. I'm pretty sure some of them, the reason why they're so hot for it is because they think it's going to be like LCS. And they think if I've got a spot next year, then I can, and this is another term that I can't handle after that the housing crisis, Rich. Oh, I could like flip my team for $1 million next year. It's like, fuck you. That's so gross, it's unreal. Like, if you do it as a legit thing, like you actually built up the team, you did it as a real business, but then someone gives you an excellent offer and you're like, okay, this makes sense now to do. That's one thing. But there are people who have that kind of like gold fever, that like gold rush thing of like, oh, I could invest a bit now. Obviously, my team won't do well in E-League now, but next year when I flip it, I'll be able to get this much more. Like, that's just gross, isn't it? There's something horrible about that.
But that's what's going on in League of Legends, right? Like, I definitely don't want that to come anywhere near CS:GO. I know these guys; the owners aren't bad people, right? Like, but seriously, like what they're doing is they're going out and they're getting these venture capital guys, and they're fucking wanting to basically get a brand like fucking promoted into the big show into LCS, and then just sell it, and then like they go and do something else. So there's no. There's no like not sustainability, but there's no continuity. That's the word. There's no continuity. These people come in, they do something arguably good, arguably bad, but they've done something. They've built something at least. They've contributed way more than a bunch of other people. Then they flip it, like you say, they sell and they're off, right? And then well, how's that good for esports? Now we got some fucking bumbling incompetent running the shit you built that obviously worked when you were building it. That's how you got to sell it, and then it's going to treat it like a walking billboard. And League of Legends is going to tacitly endorse that by franchising up. Their league's going to become franchise. So yeah, fuck doing that with CS. Fuck doing that with CS. That would really suck, I think, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. But yeah, so I really don't know where we're going. All I do know is right now, like for once, it's not the TV company that are the assholes. It's the people who organically, supposedly care and want to grow esports that are fucking up this opportunity, and it could have serious repercussions for everyone down the line, like you said. We don't know where this is going to put us all in 2 years, but it's all for short-term gains. So I guess we alluded to it, so we can move on and bring it up now. Obviously, the former TSM guys. They're doing something that I predicted. I thought this would be the way it would go. I didn't think they would be the first ones to do it. But players owning organizations, creating brands, and basically cutting out the middleman. No more fucking greedy team owners. No more unethical team owners, no more organizations that take a big deal for peripheral sponsorship, the money from which doesn't go to the players, and they got to play with peripherals they don't even use, and it affects their performance, and they get shit on by the community. All of this stuff, that's all gonna die out. Organizations that run that way, this is gonna become the norm if organizations don't adapt to what players want. And I'm really excited to see this new Astralis lineup come together, where we've got 5 players and a manager who they trust creating a brand, and they're all mutual co-owners in the team. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, the first area where I think it's really important is what you said about the peripheral sponsors. That's something where, here's the thing, for people who don't know the history of esports, it was really around like off the top of my head, I'd say maybe like 2006, 2007 onwards, where like the peripheral sponsors themselves got big because of how big esports got. The people like the SteelSeries, Razer, who were obviously niche peripheral makers before that because they're not a Logitech or Microsoft, they got big enough that just their sponsor money for a team alone could be like a massive sponsor. And we remember there was a point in time, like 2009, 2010, where SteelSeries essentially owned the industry. They had all the big teams. And so as a result, if you play for those teams, there was no debating it. You had to have a SteelSeries mouse and keyboard. Well, the problem with that is, much like every sport where someone has a utensil to control the game, so think of tennis with the tennis racket, snooker with a snooker cue. I mean, a snooker cue and darts ones are the best ones because those are ones where players will use the same cue and the same type of weighted darts for a decade. And if it goes off a little bit, there's like a famous case of a snooker player who was like I think he was a top 50 player, and his cue got broken in the aeroplane, and as a result, he never recovered his form. And it wasn't just some mental thing. Like, he didn't have exactly the setup that he wanted. Obviously it's a super precision sport. The problem is, compared to any other game, I've noticed from playing these games myself, it's not quite the same in StarCraft. It's definitely not the same in League of Legends. That's why I've always thought League of Legends is the ultimate game in Korea for like the PC bangs, because you can go in and play with the dog shit mouse that comes as standard in the PC. As long as you get the sensitivity roughly right, you'll be okay there. CS, you need that mouse to be really tuned in, especially because a lot of mice, the lasers are never perfect, so they all have slight idiosyncrasies. So you want the mouse that sort of doesn't play into the bad part of your game. You know, if you use a really high sensitivity or you move the mouse really fast, whatever it is, you need the one that's tuned to you. And so the problem is there are tons of stories of pros, even in 2015, who had to use a mouse that was from a brand and they could never find one of the models of the mouse that was as good as their old mouse. Yeah. I mean, some of them have even said as much on Twitter. Like, I believe one of the, I think it might have been Dupree, actually, from TSM, said something along the lines of, like, he could never get used to one of the Logitech mice that he had to use, and he wanted to use a different mouse. I think in the past, Shocks said something similar when he went back to Titan. He actually said, like, oh, I'm back on this old mouse. I feel like the old Shocks again. So you can see that it's not just some, like, placebo thing. I really do think for these guys, they are artists. Some of these extreme, especially the very, very skilled players, obviously. If you're just like a role player, maybe you can get away with it. If you're some world-beating player, you got to have that guy have the best peripheral he can. So I understand the old model. Maybe it was the only way to get them the money, was to get this team to get sponsored by the thing now. But in this world, in the modern day, I think there should be some kind of situation where you're not fucking over your star player so that he has to use a mouse that's not as good for him, because it just doesn't make sense in the long run. I don't think it's worth the money. And so we've got to have a new structure. And that's going to be obviously a key part of this Astralis team, because in this team, they're the owners. They get to choose potentially how sponsors get divided up among the team, etc. And even though obviously that brings its own problems, i.e. if they kick a player, blah, blah, blah. But I'd rather be dealing with those problems and potentially in the future have a great situation for the players. I think it's a good move. I like it as a general approach, even though I can see the difficulties in doing it.
Yeah, I mean, just to add something else to the peripheral stuff, you know, like it doesn't work that way in any other sport, right? You've got a apparel fucking sponsor for a league. You know, Nike might make all the shirts in the NFL or whatever, okay? But what happens moving forward is players then get individual endorsement deals. They go out to the peripheral sponsors and say, hey, this is my brand, this is what I'm about. I'll rep your mouse because I like using your mouse. And they get paid to do it. We've had situations in the past in esports, and it's amazing this has never been talked about. And this has happened on a few occasions. But I've seen players that join an organization, all right? And in the contract, obviously, as standard, you sign away image rights. You know, like it's ridiculous that you have to do it. So you sign away your image rights. You end up on a, you end up on a peripheral box, right? So I've seen this, like a player's face on a fucking box of a type of mouse that they may or may not want to use because the image rights have been signed away. And the players go, hey, look, there's a mouse named after me. There I am endorsing it. This is cool. It's not cool. You got fucking robbed. You don't get any extra money for that.
Actually, there's another thing on this topic you've just triggered me by reminding me of, which is...
I love triggering people.
For a long time, I'm talking like over 5 or 6 years, mouse peripheral makers such as SteelSeries have been claiming that they made the mouse with the player. No, you fucking didn't. In most cases, best case scenario, you let them come to your office for a week, try a couple of mouse just as in put their hand on it, move it around a bit and go, does that feel good? You never hand molded it or said that, oh, what sort of a mouse would you want? What sort of laser would you like? Would you this? Never did any of the shit which you would then really ethically need to have done to claim that you made the mouse with the player. So as a result, even to the modern day, I know of very few cases. I think the only ones I can think of is, I think that Heaton and Spawn actually were involved with making those first Zowie mouse. I think that might be true, but almost every other case was essentially a lie, was essentially something along the lines of the player just put his name to it or had some basically had as much insight as the CSGO pros get into how CSGO is made, which is they talk to the dev and go, oh, I don't really like the way the AK is done. And he goes, oh, brilliant. Yeah. And then does like nothing about what they said anyway. So I've always found that to be super dirty. And unfortunately, that's probably why people didn't think there was such a big problem, because they saw all the names of those fucking Evil Geniuses, Fnatic, SK, and they were, all right, the players made this mouse. This mouse is brilliant. Let's ignore the fact that you're actually conning a guy into buying the mouse, thinking that like his fucking favorite player helped make it. Like if I really thought, and I was a scrub guy, that like Shocks and Olofmeister helped make this mouse, I would think I've got to buy this. It must be like the most accurate mouse. That's fucking super precision, no spazzing out at all.
Yeah.
Obviously, that would be what you'd think, right?
Yeah, and you know, look, I the one we all laugh about. I can say this now. Obviously, you know, I think the DreamHack boat has sailed, right? But that fucking NIP advert, right, for the ISO monitors. Yep. How many times have we been sat there like and we're just looking at each other? The Get Right quote comes up, and the monitor helps me specifically in the lurker role, and then like another quote comes up. I particularly like the fact that it has this many megahertz. Freiburg never said that, of course. Like definitely no player ever has ever fucking said anything like that. I like the way the components are made in sweatshops. No one ever fucking says that shit, do they? It's ridiculous, and it's there, and it's like. That's only happening because players are selling their fucking image rights. And you get words put in your mouth, you get quotes put in your mouth. That are complete bullshit. Does an ISO monitor help you with the lurking role?
The sad thing is, though, as well,
it fucking doesn't.
That's exactly where, if these companies want to actually get away with this shit, at least consult people like me and Rich or people who know about esports. Because again, why would fucking Forrest be like, the fact that it has a 28.7 magnification mirrored inverted point allows me to shit. Like, he'd never say that, would he? He would never. He doesn't even know what that is. That is so implausible that he would say that. Ridiculous. The lie doesn't even make sense, does it?
No, it's so ridiculous. Like players, right? Okay, this is the thing. Like, obviously, love players, me, right? But like, just real talk. I see players when they have to like unplug a mouse and plug a mouse in again. It blows their fucking mind. It blows my mind how these players can't know how their fucking equipment works, right? And there they are. I like the fact that the 8mm gold tip, like, there's no fucking way, there's no way. There's just no way you understand what's going on. You pop heads, that's what you do. You know if a mouse feels good and enables you to pop more fucking heads. In fact, that should be the quote on the box. Shocks. Yeah. It made me pop heads, right? That's it. That's the fucking quote, right? That's the real quote. It's fucking so retarded. Anyway.
That would be good marketing. If I saw that, it was just like, it made me pop heads. They'd be like, oh, Shocks is on board. Sounds sick. Like, I want to pop heads. So.
Yeah, we all want to pop heads, right? So anyway, fuck it, right? So back to Astralis. I think as well, I think it's an interesting shift in sort of the power paradigm. One of the things that I've always talked about is how players don't have individual agency. They are kind of... you know, they're reliant on other people going and representing their interests, and they never get in those rooms, and they never hear those meetings, they never hear those conversations, and then a manager comes back and goes, yeah, got you a totally sick deal. As it actually happens, manager was fucking going, yeah, I'll tell you what then, I'm not going to do that league. You give me some money, and I'll be exclusive to your league because everyone wants to watch my players, right? And what would be better for the players' exposure and their individual image rights would be to get on TV or whatever, but now I'm going to keep it online because you're going to pay me. That's the kind of conversation that's happening right now with team owners and shit. Now, I think this is really good because players get to choose where the fuck they go. They're all equal co-owners. Like, that's actually a really good thing, in my opinion. I've seen a lot of people talk negatively about this. They're saying, what happens when you want to kick someone? Well, what happens when you're on a board and you want to vote someone off? You have a vote. Then you do, and then there'll be something in the contract where it's like if at any point you have to leave, you get bought out. You can't be an owner without fucking, you know, getting a return on it. You got to have some equity or something. So I think this is a good thing all around, in my opinion. Can you envision any problems? Something that maybe I'm missing.
I mean, I agree with the basic principle that the only problem is how you put together the wording of it. So, for example, obviously, by the way, for anyone who's watching now, unless the person who put this organization together is very naive, he didn't just give them all, like, well, obviously it wouldn't be 20% because he's going to have a part himself. He obviously didn't just give them all 15% of the company each, and then if they kick Zipnik, he just sits there on 15%. I'd imagine if he did it the intelligent way, they probably had a system like there was a percentage of the company that was given out to the players. And if he was smart, he'd probably do it like this. If you stay in the team for 5 years, you get all of your percent. But for now, you get this much. Then next year, you get this much. And so as a result, there can't be a scenario like that where the first time you kick someone, they just own too much of the company. And where do you give the shares to the other guy? It won't be like that. I think it should have been intelligently put together. I will say, though, that on the other side, the reason why, as long as they can figure all that out, I don't mind the problems, is because one thing that no one's brought up as a topic, that once I saw this team put together where they have own equity in it, I thought it was a brilliant idea. Admittedly, obviously, they're not going to make that much of the money back until it ever becomes a public company, which obviously is quite a while away. But it's thinking back to myself, when I look at some of the orgs in esports, SK Gaming, Fnatic, TSM, where the fuck is the residual money for the people who built these orgs? No, not the guy who made the deals and the guy who put them people on planes, who did something certainly and deserves his share, but has gotten his share and everyone else's share. Where is the share of something in Fnatic for Forest? A lot of you guys watching now don't know this. You think Forrest's a nip player. I watched Forrest play for 5 years in Fnatic, and for like 2 or 3 of those, just hard carry him on his back. Then never got 1 cent extra for the rest of his life from Fnatic, even though he put them in the position where when he joined them, they were a nobody team, just an also ran. And now they're considered one of the best orgs ever. And once he left, even, we're in position to get people to replace him. Likewise, SK Gaming, TSM, all those guys from Season 2 in TSM. A bunch of those guys don't play for the team anymore. I mean, a famous example is Chaos. Is now treated like a fucking pariah, like he's a retard or something. But he helped build that team. He was part of the squad that made them one of the biggest. He doesn't get anything from it. He's everything he's ever got. He finished the second he left the team. So you can see what I mean.
League of Legends players in fucking TSM, it's fucking Stockholm syndrome, isn't it? Like, no, Reggie, I will stay here forever. Like, you don't leave TSM. Yeah. You just become a streamer for TSM. You get locked in one of Reginald's fucking dungeons somewhere, stream, fucking 16 hours repping the TSM brand. And if at any point you get slightly tilted or upset, Reginald just comes in, what the fuck you doing, bro? And that's it.
That's why I've never understood this logic. Think of TSM fans, Richard. So they literally will be like, no, but Reggie's a great guy. Like, he takes care of the ex-players. Again, think about what a humongous cunt you'd have to be not to take care of someone who literally has earned you money, and now you are going to benefit from what they did while no longer having to give them 1 fucking red cent. If you can't even be nice to that guy, and by the way, he hasn't always been, then you must be the biggest piece of shit who ever lived. I mean, literally, that guy, you're not helping him anymore, or you are in a very small level, but it's essentially like if some manager had all the Beatles shit, and then eventually he was just like, oh, are you leaving me? Oh, well, really liked working with you. I'm keeping all your rights, of course, but really liked working with you. Here's a cake. And they were like, wow, you are a brilliant manager. You did give him that cake. It's like, yeah, he wrote all the fucking songs that you can get royalties for, isn't it? He's built your whole fucking brand.
Mate, this is like, I think what we're describing here, this is like the NWA fucking movie. Eazy-E's getting all the Skrilla. Motherfuckers out there forgot about Dre. Then he's just getting fucked. He's getting cornholed.
Hopefully, the universe takes care of Reggie.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Listen. Reggie, here's all I'm going to say, Rich. Have you ever heard the story of how it started?
Jesus fucking Christ!
That's all I'm going to say. Just keep going, boys. Just keep going.
So, but for real,
that was quite a callback reference point there. Reference game incredibly on point.
For real though, like Astralis, I think they're going to be a big organization. I just think it took them so long to kind of get this done. Like if they'd announced this a month ago, I think they go somewhere. I think maybe they're. I don't know what's going to happen. I think this team has to be in the Eternal League, for example, but I don't know. I don't know if maybe it's been left a bit too late. So I guess we've got to wait and see. I do wish him every success. Just one final question on Astralis before we move on. A lot of people were saying, oh, all of this stuff going on in the background's been a big distraction for them. That's why they're starting to choke again. Do you believe any of that shit?
I will say if there was any team that was going to fuck with, it probably would be them. But much like with the NIP thing where they weren't getting paid on most of it, the only problem with that is it only sets up part of the atmosphere to cause that problem. At the end of the day, in the server, you're still seeing problems that these players, just like the NIP players, gradually went on the dip downhill, even when that wasn't the problem. You still saw the same problems in the past in the TSM team. So I don't buy it entirely. I think it's more like a scenario. Here's my analogy I would use for it. It's more like they got into the situation where the guy who's afraid to walk out on the tightrope does it, and he doesn't look down, and he's walking, and it's all working. Then it thinks in his mind, oh, I could just have a little peek down. Oh, no, and he looks down, then it all, the whole facade of confidence and the lack of fear goes away, and suddenly he's going to fall off again. So I think it's more like that. Like they can't, it was working for a while. They didn't know why it was working. When it started to stop working, it just unraveled somehow. And it's not that it's gone entirely to shit. They still gradually put it back together just enough every now and then, but they're not at the level they used to be. So I don't buy the idea that the organizational thing alone kind of fucked them in that sense. Not least because at the end of the day, they did fall off again at the major, and the major has been the big trigger point in general across their careers. So I think that it was more like how humongous the moment was against NIP, and then how shocking the failure was. I think that was kind of like that blew up the powder keg that might have been set up by some of the TSM organizational problems.
Right. So let's talk about some events. And there's a couple other news, and then we'll get the fuck out of here. Now we were worlds apart, Duncan, because I went to the MLG major, minor, sorry, I should say, which will feed into the major, one of the teams, and I was doing that in Ohio, and you were in Belarus, which I can imagine you had a wonderful time out there.
Kind of the Ohio of Europe.
Yeah.
Actually, though, the women are a lot thinner there, so I guess sorry to Belarus, It's not Ohio, Rich.
I like Ohio. People in the Midwest are good.
Okay,
like.
It's okay.
No, for real. So I was like having a hungover breakfast in a fucking Taco Bell, and I said to the guy, like, where the fuck can I flag down a cab? And he's like, when my shift finishes, I'll drive you to the airport. Okay. Like, just being friendly. And I was just like, nah, because...
I see what you did there, Rich. Because obviously anyone who works at Taco Bell also drives a cab.
That definitely is what I'm saying.
And then he was like, no, I'm going less. And you were like, taxi cab.
He didn't have a cab, folks. You feel me? He had a fucking car. He was a regular dude. And he was like, I'll drive you. And it's like, people in the Midwest are pretty fucking cool. I told you, right? I'm for real on this. I fucking love America. It's not a popular thing to say, like, right? I used to be one of them fucking washed out fucking liberal assholes who was like, fuck America, man. The people are fucking great. You can't blame fucking the people for the state of their government. That's like holding me accountable for fucking David Cameron who fucked a pig. what am I gonna do? You know what I mean? I wasn't there. I wasn't holding the pig. Go on, mate. Give it another one in its dead mouth. You know what I mean? I wasn't there. I don't get invited to those kind of parties anymore. So anyway, I was at the minor. It was pretty good. I had a lot of fun there. Working with Moses, and just watching sort of the NA teams, some of the ones I've never seen at events before, learning about players I didn't really know about before.
Moses must have been so happy being at an event where it was just NA wins, another NA team. Oh my God, NA wins.
Everyone was in hog heaven. But I think everyone's has a very real understanding about the disparity between European teams and NA teams. But some of the storylines that came out of that were pretty fucking cool. Enemy winning it. Kusta is a fucking boss, by the way. Like, I'm not even making that up. Like, Kusta could slot into a top team right now and body people. I think he's that fucking good. So I want to ask you, is he that fucking good?
I mean, I obviously didn't watch much of this tournament, but when I saw him play in the past, I'm trying to think which one it was he played. And I think the one he played in was the RGN Pro Series. I think that was the one where he played and beat CLG. He was good in that game. And he was also the player where I will give full discretion. Moses has been fucking hyping this guy hard for like 3 months. So I will admit that also makes me want to be like, let's wait and see, because when people just go way too ham on players, you always make like, so yeah, he did seem pretty good. Put it this way, in a world where people are like fighting over this Stewie 2K guy, and where TSM signed this fucking ragtag dog shit lineup, and people are getting these massive contracts who were total scrubbers. I mean, some UK guys going to some fucking NA team. In that world, Kusta's a superstar, mate. Like, you've already seen enough to know he's going to be good, and I would take a chance on a player like him. Yeah. How the fuck they got him to sign again with that enemy team? I have to say, listen, I don't care if anyone from enemy's watching this, suck a dick. You must have just fucked with this kid's head and done some proper mind games on him about how you'd invested in him and how you're going to build around him and how don't take this better offer. And in doing so, you might have fucked this kid's career for the next 1 or 2 years, because he should, obviously, in this world I'm describing now, be on a top team because they want players right now. Teams like a Cloud9 or a Team Liquid or a TSM or whatever, he should be in a better org with a better salary than you can pay and better opportunities, and not just an E-League spot or whatever the fuck you have. So, yeah, I get it that you're looking out for your bottom line or whatever, but then don't make out like you're a wonderful guy who's looking after this kid like some fucking little league coach, because obviously that guy should have been going elsewhere. And whether it was some buyout fee or what, it's kind of suspicious to me that he's staying in what is not a very good team. I mean, it's okay.
Let me tell you, though. Let me tell you. So, first of all, they've definitely made some tactical changes. They've sort of. It's not so much we're going to build a team around you in the sense we're going to kick everyone, bring in a bunch of ringers, and you're going to be, King Kusta on your throne. What they've done is they've actually changed the tactics. So, right from now on, mainline, you basically stay close to Kusta at all times. You follow him around the map. He gets the license to go and do Kusta things. You're there to bail him out. It's a bit more looser than the tactical structure we see in a typical CSGO team. Now, also on top of that, they've been really, from what I understand, from talking to the management, and of course you can take that with a pinch of salt, but they've said to him, look, if at any point the team really starts, being dog shit and underachieving, obviously, we'll make some serious changes, or you can get the fuck out. We'll parachute you somewhere else. Because the coaches.
That's pretty sound.
Yeah, they got a guy called Ryu, who obviously is playing the team. He's a big fucking guy. He looks like fucking Ram Man from fucking the old He-Man cartoons. Cool guy. And basically they've just done a fuck ton of work in sort of changing the team so it's like they can get the most out of this one player because they recognize they got this fucking gem. But equally, they also know financially maybe they can't compete. But it was Kusta's call to turn down TSM. They knocked on his door. He turned them down. He could have been part of that new TSM lineup, which, it's not really anything to shout about, but he could have been. Could have been on TSM making some bank. And instead, it was Kusta, under no duress or anything. He was like, no, I want to stay here. I feel comfortable here. I'll give it another 6 to 12 months and see where the chips fall. And if we can get them into, if we can sort of see that team end up in, things like the Eternal League and stuff, there's no reason why they couldn't attract more talent. Who the fuck is this? This is what happens when you're in a hotel. I was making a good point there. Check this out. Hello?
Metaluit, I got the drug they want, Metaluit. You want crocodile, yeah? I bring you best crocodile Chinatown.
All good, honestly, thank you.
What can I tell you, people? It happens. It is fucked up though that drug dealer called him.
Fucking Christ! Poor guy's trying to do his job, dog. What the fuck is that, mate? So, anyway, right? Where the fuck was I? Yeah. So anyway, basically, Kusta's gonna give a chance. He's gonna take a chance on Enemy actually turning into something. And here's like I said on the minor, we don't know where Enemy are in terms of the overall ranking in the US because there's this big shuffle that's happened. I don't know how good any of these teams are gonna be. I don't know if we can bank on Cloud9 being the fucking, being decent with the gamble they've took on Stewie 2K, right? The only thing I feel comfortable really saying about US Counter-Strike right now is I think Team Liquid are indisputably number one.
Yeah.
Because they're simple, of course. But and definitely nothing GB James ever did. In fact, that coach is the guy who's advocating let's not make any roster changes. Oh, is Simple available? Yeah. Do I keep my job today? Fuck this guy, right? So anyway, no roster changes because you need to build stability unless it's Simple, and then definitely go and make that roster change because Simple is fucking sick. Almost as if the previous sentence was a fucking lie, you absolute moron. So anyway, Enemy really impressed me. I think Kusta's got a good head on those young shoulders. I think he's going to be doing big things in the scene. And like I say, I think every big organization is going to feel the force. I think he's the number one AWPer in NA. I really do, just in terms of talent. not achievements, none of that other, no other metric. I just look at him and I see the best Oprah in LA.
Kuster
Yeah.
is better than Skadoodle.
Yeah. Right now, Skittle's in a massive slump, dog. You got to fucking know that.
I don't
Check
know
that.
about that.
Dude, for real.
Yeah, but the problem
he's in slump, man.
is Kuster's playing against fucking Optic Gaming.
Yeah.
You know?
I know he's not doing it against top-level opposition because enemy haven't got the opportunity to fucking compete against top-level opposition. But what's going to happen in 2016 is they are going to compete against top-level opposition, and Kuster's going to fucking body everyone. And 6 months from now, I'm going to be real smug, just like Colin Envious winning the next fucking major. I'm going to call Kuster's going to be the fucking absolute king of North America. There's just no doubt. He's just mechanically, he's a superior player at Skadoodle. This is just a fact.
I don't know about that, but I will say of the group of the newer players, he would obviously be the one I would tip to go furthest because here's the problem actually, we'll probably get into this when we talk about the TSM aspect. A lot of what is being touted as rising talent are actually people who've also played a year or two and just weren't good players. There's a reason they weren't on top teams. It's not that they were some mega talent that just never got a chance before. So the difference is, at least for someone like Kuster, it's because he is a young guy and he is reasonably new. And in his first few chances, he has done well. So at least he's going along the path, as it were, to becoming a good player. Whereas the others, some of them, ridiculously, have literally just been shunted from nowhere into being in a top team and with no reason for it, aside from they need players, you know.
We've all been shunted in esports. So the other big storyline, Optic, the green wall. Everyone was like, they're going to win the event. Should have been real easy. And they went up against Splice. Now, Splice had been terrible on day one, day two. They struggled against EZG, where every player in that team had only played at open level in ESEA. I think one had maybe played intermediary, right? Like, that's the level. And I think EZG took like fucking 10, 11 rounds off him or some shit, right? Like, you were like, what the fuck's a Splice? I was like, no fucking way. They lost to 16-14. They started crying about how like it was played on 35-second fucking bomb timers and not the new fucking bomb timer, even though both halves were played the fucking same. So it made no fucking difference whatsoever, right? But they managed to fucking beat Optic, which is fucking insane. And they did it on Cobble. They messaged me, I think, and said, like, actually the draft played out really well for them. I don't fucking buy that. Like, I don't care what they say. They're like, Cobble's our second best map, blah, blah, blah. They can't have gone in thinking they were going to win that fucking title. Like, not seriously. And yet they did it. And it was mainly predicated upon Optic just absolutely crumbling.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like, I mean, I don't think Optic's that great a team. I think they're okay. Here's the thing for me. Optic looking okay at the moment, to me, is more a factor of how bad some of the other teams have been around the events they've been at. Like that CEVO they placed top 4 at was the one where Dignitas was on its last legs before it went complete to shit, and then Team Liquid still were a bit of fuck ups basically. So take that away, and there's not a whole lot they did except have one good map against Virtus Pro. That's it basically. So yeah, to me, Optics. I mean, look, fair play to the Optic guys. They managed to trick Optic Gaming into signing them. There we go. That's their best accomplishment in their career. They tricked Optic Gaming into signing them and giving them a contract. It's too late now. Don't worry. Sorry, Optic owner guy. You can't take that back. You signed on the line.
Hector will hate me for this.
But you know what, Rich, though? Here's the thing. In a way, don't you find that satisfying? For once, it was the player who was fucking the org by getting them to sign on the dotted line. Beautiful. Think how many times it's been the other way, mate. Beautiful. You have to pay that money to Shazam now. You know that's Shazam, right? That massive cunt that no one likes and who's done about 2 good land maps in his life. You have to pay him a whole year's salary now, put him on TV.
Oh, dude. Like, here's the thing, right? So, like, Hector will hate me for telling this story, right? But, like, okay. Hector was there, man. I was hanging out with Hector, a real cool guy, like, seriously, one of the great owners. You know, like, just, you know, another proof again that players
like
can. Guy. Yeah, but I mean, proof that players can be masters of their own destiny, right? Like, he runs one of the biggest fucking gaming organizations in the fucking world, right? Ex-player, really player-focused, player-centric. And anyway, so he was there, and obviously they were getting wrecked by Splice. And he just turned to me and went, obviously there's a 30-day return policy on anything you buy, right? Like, I was fucking
good.
laughing.
That's good. I like that.
But obviously he was just joking. Like, he doesn't mean that. Like, he's gonna back this team to the hill, and I still think they'll go on and do good things. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, as I found out at the fucking minor, NA Counter Strike is fucking very unpredictable indeed. But I had
Plus,
a lot of fun.
You know, I mean, I have bagged on the E League and some of the problems they've had, but I've got to give them credit. I mean, Optic did deserve their spot in the E League for beating the fourth best Macedonian team. What was them, right? Wasn't that who they beat? I can't remember. I forget anyway. All I remember was me just wrecking some like washed up old NBA player or some shit. I forget all the rest before that, Rich. Yeah.
Yeah, no, trust me, mate. I've had to deal with you ever since, so I fucking know. Like your timeline is like Vegas was shit, Rec Shack, everything's great now.
yeah, it really was. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. So anyway, what about your shit over in Belarus? How was that?
Yeah, this is quite good actually, believe it or not. Like, I will say one thing is that this is probably the person that had the worst food I've ever had in my entire life.
There's no way, and I wasn't there to film it. Fuck.
I know, yeah. Mate, I was going mental the whole time. I was just wrecking everyone. And then people like Maniac were just triggering me going, this is good. This food is... I can't even do it. He's not from Africa, but I don't even know. Just like, no, man, this is good.
Why is he making clicking noises? What was that?
But whatever he said, he was going like, saying it was good food. And I was like, are you having a laugh? This is terrible, mate. So anyway, the food was terrible, but the actual arena thing was all right. That did look pretty good when it was all lit up and whatnot. Unfortunately, the actual games were very good though. Basically, the only part where the games let us down was the final, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All the rest of the tournament was incredible. Like, for example, even when there would be a stomp elsewhere in the tournament, it would be like so shocking. So, for example, Envious totally stomping Fnatic is like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is supposed to be the best team. Or vice versa. Well, not vice versa, but when Envious got stomped by Na'Vi, you were like, how is this even possible? So those were like stomps, but they were like, there was still something incredible about them. But then because the final was like a mega stomp, that did bring it down. Because aside from that, this would have been one of the best tournaments ever in terms of like great series, because it had a number that were like back and forwards or great rivalries. Just at the very end, the final let it down a bit, but it was a great tournament otherwise.
I mean, we were watching it obviously while we were out in America. Like the time fucking difference was wrecking us, but like me and Moses were sort of, getting up and fucking sitting in rooms and watching a few games, and then we were watching the VODs. There was some fucking really good games at that fucking event. The Luminosity Fnatic fucking series was unfucking real. I was unfucking real, dude. That's everything you want in a series.
No, I mean, the third map was amazing.
Yeah, because that's what sets it up, right? You see, you have this very, the score lines are one-sided, but you have this tactical back and forth where you see the strengths on these maps of these teams, right? You understand why these maps are in a veto, why the maps are in a pool. They show you the good, they show you the bad. There's this, like, wonderful structure to it all. It helps you understand the identity of the teams, right? Then you go into a decider, okay, and it's just fucking rock 'em, sock 'em, back and forth, and you have a 16-14. That is like a perfect fucking series for me. Obviously, like, there's a lot of people who'd be like, oh, but if everyone was 16-14, if every map had overtimes and stuff, yeah, it'd be exciting and all that, but I don't think necessarily you would be, if that's happening, you're getting the best Counter-Strike. Like, obviously, one team's making mistakes, or one team's punching well above their weight, or whatever. But like, it was just unreal. I really felt fucking sorry for Luminosity, because for what everything Fallen has achieved with that team. Like, your tweet the other day that blew up about how he's the best in-game leader in the world. I don't even know how there's an argument. Like, because he's not just the in-game leader. He's the guy who's built the fucking team and handles all of the sponsorship, all of the money, all of the training, spends his spare time, of course, being like a philanthropist and helping get Argentinian fucking teams to lands and shit. All-round good guy. And this is the guy, of course, the 1.6 community shit on because he said Counter-Strike Source was, in his opinion, a more tactical game because of how flashes were overpowered and stuff. So, shat on, of course, by the wonderful 1.6 community. But yeah, just an absolute fucking legend. And I really want Luminosity to fucking... I want this to be their year. I want to be at a tournament where they fucking win. Like where they actually get first place.
No, what's great is... obviously, the reason why Titan used to be my favorite team to watch is because I always thought they had the best tactical style. And what was great was even in the Kenny S era, when they were a much worse team than when they'd had the shocks and they'd been like one of the best in the world, just having great tactics meant they always matched up with, like the Fnatics, the Enviouses of the world, and they always had great series. So that's why I used to like to watch them even if they lost. That's what Luminosity is for me now. They're the best team to watch. That's why so many of the series they have are classics and are amazing, because they're so good on T-side that they match up well with even these fantastic teams, that some of them who have better aimers than them. So yeah, to me, at the moment, the team that get you the best series, they're the catalysts. Like I always used to say in the past, it was VP, because VP had the great matchups at the top level, with the NIP, with TSM, with Fnatic. But at the moment, I think it's probably Luminosity. If you put Luminosity in a series against the top 5 team, you're almost guaranteed to get a map or two that'll just be really, really good Counter-Strike.
Yeah. Just some thoughts about Fnatic. We did kind of call this on previous shows. Like we were like, for the first 3 months while everyone's getting their shit together, the Fnatic era is probably going to continue. But what do you make of this Fnatic? Are they going to be dominant over the course of a year like they were previously? Is Dennis the fucking player that actually was the missing part of the jigsaw and is going to take them to the next level?
Yeah, here's the thing. A lot of the analysts had a similar kind of thinking to me after coming into this event, which was they all kind of agreed, like, yeah, it's crazy to say about a team that's won the first 3 events in a row, but they didn't look that dominant. Like, they looked shaky at times and they'd lost series, and we all know they'd lost to Envious. We're all thinking if they play Envious, they'll lose again, which they did at this tournament. But the crazy thing about it is, what this tournament taught me is that even though Fnatic has lost a lot of the special qualities that they had in the old lineup, like they don't have that amazing ability to do like comebacks within a map that they did when they had Pronax, where he would do these mad ones. They don't do the same timeouts and do the comebacks. They don't seem as good on CT side even as the old Fnatic. Despite all those problems, they do still have the quality that the old team had, which was they have that like champions aura, where when it's like the big match, somehow they just win. And it looks like luck at the time. But you know what? Every great champion in history has that. NIP had it. People forget this. Oh, NIP was the most dominant team ever. NIP was literally in a 1v3 where Exist had to defuse with like a fucking smoke or something on Dust 2. Otherwise, their team would have been out in the group stage of a DreamHack in 2013 when, you remember, you guys all say there was no good teams, etc. They would have been out in the group stage. That's luck right there. Yeah, Exist made a great play. He needed a lot of help from other people to get that play to work. Likewise, you can go down the list. I'm sure at different times in history, I think when LDLC won the major over NIP, NIP was at fucking match point in the final on the 3rd map. And the LDLC guys came back and won. So every great champion has that luck. Because to me, what happens is that sort of luck comes from being so good, and especially if you're good under pressure, that you just like, it's like you're giving yourself extra chances. And eventually, if you give yourself enough, one of them's going to work. And somehow when you're a champion, that's why you just keep having these miracle wins, So as a result, that's the one thing that I've realized is Fnatic has that at the moment. So that will stand them in good stead. It probably means they will win more tournaments. They probably at the moment are just the de facto #1 team, especially because Envious is crumbling like motherfuckers. But I will say, Rich, they tricked me at this event, because in the final, I actually predicted Na'Vi to win. And everyone I know said Na'Vi was
I saw this, and it was like, we were watching it, because obviously we had some overlap with the minus finals. And I was like, what the fuck is Duncan doing? Like, these are all of your rules.
Yeah.
What are you betting against Fnatic in a final for?
And here's the thing, though. If you look at the course of the tournament, I think this is the most impossible final to predict the way it actually went I've ever seen. Because the course of the tournament was Fnatic got wrecked by Envious, then played all right, just beat TSM, and then narrowly, by the smallest of margins and some crazy pistol round wins, not actually real pistol rounds, but ones where they were on like ecos essentially, beat Luminosity and didn't look like they even should have done that. Then they get to the final against the Na'Vi team, who even in losses is getting incredibly close scores, then is winning with like clutch T-side play against every other opponent, has just ultra-wrecked Envious. The trajectory of both teams throughout the tournament said, first and foremost, Na'Vi's definitely going to win this. And then on top of that, you don't even know if Fnatic's actually going to even come up to par on some of the maps against them. They haven't shown any form in that sense. Not only that, you look on the other side of the equation, Guardian's in like complete god mode. He's wrecking every single series. Even in the final, he actually did turn up and go absolutely mental. So you look at this like kind of run, and for me, it's hard to rationalize, say Fnatic could win, and then forget saying that they would win in that fashion, where like Dennis of all people would like wreck the first map, and then they would just be super dominant over both maps. And then not only that, Na'Vi then chokes and goes completely to shit and like reverts to their form from about 4 tournaments ago at SIVO. Like It's like the final took place in an alternate universe or something, because none of the things that had led up to that for either team made sense, you know. So fair
Yeah.
play, it happened. We were wrong, great, but it's hard to even go back now and figure out how you could have foreseen that. You know, I don't know anyone who's given me a good reason, like, oh, well, I saw this coming in, you know.
I mean, so like I'm gonna brew some coffee for this one because it's the last thing I want to talk about Belarus. I'm gonna do some news hits and we'll end the show. I don't know how long we've been going. I'm not timing it, but anyway, envious, dog, like what the fuck, just what the fuck, like what happened? I mean, like I saw that Vine of Happy saying like, you know what happened, and he said they take us from behind, and they think. I mean, it's one of the fucking craziest like mental deteriorations in a series I've ever seen. I don't want to, you know. Obviously, I'm trying to avoid hyperbole, but it was ridiculous. It was fucking ridiculous. So tell me about it, dog. I'm gonna put the coffee on. This will be good.
No, I think that is literally the worst meltdown of a number one ranked team that's ever happened in the history of Counter-Strike. Like, I've never seen anything like that vaguely happen before because, okay, the closest you could get is like when TSM was really good for the major. Obviously, they choked at the major, et cetera, et cetera. Difference is, they were only good at the medium tournaments and they'd gradually built up and then they had a big collapse. Envious won the major. They're the world champions. They'd won 3 or 4 tournaments up to that. Even in losses beforehand, it was still close. I mean, it was close when Luminosity beat them in some of those maps. They had beaten Fnatic. So the way they broke down there was the worst breakdown I've ever seen. And what's great is it feels like the culmination of every single episode where I've ever complained about their style and said, like, as long as it works, it's okay to do that force buying. But if it's ever not working, you will kill yourself as a team. That's exactly what happened. Because me and Henry were laughing on the desk. Like on the train game, the second map, where they'd already been wrecked after that huge lead on T-side, huge lead on Cobblestone. On the train game, they start out on CT and they're just losing round after round after round. And they just keep force buying. And we're just joking like, well, you know what they say, if you fail to force buy, win a round after force buying 4 times, fifth one's the charm. We were just saying shit like that because that's what they were really doing. And what's funny is after the fact, I asked Maniac, because you have to remember, Maniac's just coming on for this event to be the coach and he was stood behind them. I said to him, be real with me. Why didn't you say something to any of them when they were doing that, like force buying to death? Yeah. And he literally said that for that tournament, at least, like, you know, it was decided that, yeah, he'd stand behind them and he'd give them comments or whatever. But because NBK is just starting as an in-game leader, he was going to like give him space to do what he was going to do. Like let him like have the reins fully, do what you're going to do. And then the idea is after the fact, we'll kind of figure things out and see where we go from there. So that wasn't Maniac's fault, by the way. Don't blame Maniac for any of that stuff and think that like he came in and told him, no, do this, do that. He wasn't doing any of that stuff. He was just maybe giving the odd point here and there. And so, no, I think that's utterly ridiculous the way that went. That was, I mean, obviously the way they wrecked Fnatic was very impressive. So I'll give MBK props for that. But come on, man. That's one of the worst in-game leadership performances ever, the series against fucking Na'Vi, because that was just humiliating the way they got wrecked.
I mean, like honestly, I literally couldn't believe what we were watching. It was ridiculous. We even turned away from the first map because we were like, well, this is obviously done. And then the second map, it was just it was car crash fucking television.
Put it this way, you know when Envious went out last place at Face It, and I emphasized that point to you. Like, think of a great team in history who was a dominant team in CSGO, whoever went out last place in something. It never happened. NIP never did it. You know, none of them while they were at their peak did it, okay? Worse than that, think of like the last Fnatic team, or think of an NIP. While they're still considered a really top team, when have they ever got spanked like that? It's never happened. You can beat them. Maybe they have an off game and you beat them on a map, or you beat them 16-10. You don't just like batter them completely while they just sit there just melting down. And even worse, when I was looking at the Envious players, I mean, they're not the most communicative team anyway, and they do have a lot of individual players who play selfishly, you know. But yeah, it looked to me, for real, like they just never said anything while they were getting wrecked, especially the train game. It looked to me like they were just all in denial, like, oh, fuck this. Like, just play it out, whatever. Just keep playing, whatever. Like, they didn't look like champions, mate, because that's not what... And remember, you can take timeouts in this shit and actually talk to each other and fix things. So I think that team's in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, look, but here's the thing, right? Every French team in Counter-Strike does this. Like, we go back to the dominant era of Counter-Strike Source, back when Very Games were the undisputed fucking kings. And that this was a team that was put together by an in-game leader who, sadly, history has forgotten about. One of the true greats, in my opinion, a guy called KRL. He learnt his sort of in-game leading trade from the 1.6 player in France called Hearts, right? And anyway, he put together this fucking team that had like the RPKs back when he was called something else a bit less palatable, and he built them up and created this great fucking team. And then he went out, and then it was like the rise of existence. He was sort of taking over the reins of in-game leadership. Meanwhile, KRL built a French team called Nameless, and Nameless were the only team that could ever fucking beat Berry Games. Everyone else was fucked. Then I think KRL returned for a bit, then, whatever the fuck. But then Berry Games just went on and dominated. And what would always happen is there'd be one or two players that would get swapped out. It typically happened with Shocks, right? Because he's the guy with the bigger personality. And all that would happen is Shocks goes out, Shocks comes in, like every time. And all throughout this is what would happen. They would be the number one team, and then they would dip a little bit. They'd make a roster change. Number one team, dip a little bit, bring Shocks back. And this was the pattern. This was the pattern for like 3 fucking years, right? And it's always happened with French teams. And I just start to wonder, if Kiyoshima's having a few sleepless nights. Oh, no, Shocks. Don't come back. Especially with all this shit going over on at Titan. It couldn't happen, could it?
I mean, the big problem they have is here's the big issue I have for their team is that the reason things like that eventually have to happen is because you run out of things to do. Like, okay, so normally you'd have said with this team, right, well, the obvious problem is, in-game leadership. Right, well, okay, we've changed the in-game leader. We've got MBK now. Okay, but what about a coach? Well, you got Maniac now. I mean, basically almost everything you can do, they've done. They've already got the gaming house. They've already got the great stuff from the org. So at this point, I don't know what else there is to change. They've done just about everything. So it's kick a player. That's the last option. Right? That's like the break in case of emergency. You got to do it eventually.
They need to change anything though, brother. What's wrong? Okay, what's wrong with them becoming like a French Virtus Pro and they win one tournament and then they crap out in another and then they win a tournament and then they crap out in another? Is there anything wrong with that? Like, I always think you try and you want your teams, when they're dominant, to be dominant, to attain perfection. But actually, I kind of like Counter-Strike when it is a little bit more erratic and open, where, like, shit like this can happen, where the number one team can crap out in last place.
Here's the problem. If that was the case, that'd be fine. But the big issue at the moment is that they only have 2 gears. They're either Unreal and they wreck Fnatic, or they get bodied. It's like the one of the two. Yeah. So that's the problem. Yeah. The thing with Virtus Pro is they do what you're saying, which is like they do win the tournament, and then they have 3 where they're just like 2 of them they make the semis, and then the 4th one they do bomb out, and then they win a tournament. So the problem at the moment for Envious is they won everything and now they're winning nothing. So it's like even the results are like that. And then the biggest issue is at the moment they're getting to look really good, mainly because we've got all these best of 3 groups. So they've beaten Fnatic twice, but that was always in the groups. And at the end of the day, you have to win the real matches, the playoff matches, when they haven't done that yet. So that's the biggest problem for me, is that they haven't won any playoff matches. So there's something wrong with the team. I mean, I agree with you. If they could get to that place where, we'll never be the number one team. Because that's the thing I always say about Virtus Pro. They will never be number one, but I wouldn't change any players because they will still win tournaments. You just know they will. They'll have the odd tournament where it does click, they win the tournament. So if the Envious could get to that place, I agree. Keep the lineup like that. But I just think in terms of them, that eventually they'll change a player. And now, hey, it might not be Kiyashima. For all you know, hey, listen, eventually, he is a really good player now, but if Happy isn't the in-game leader, how do you know he doesn't eventually go? We've never thought of it before because we thought he was at the helm of the team. But if NBK becomes the in-game leader and that's all going well, there's someone else they can consider. So I don't know. I wouldn't do it myself probably, because aside from Shocks, who else can you even bring in? There's not a whole lot of options, But just knowing the way that teams go, teams aren't just going to sit around and lose forever unless they're called NIP and they have a lot of little pleb fans. But aside from them.
But here's the thing. So I had a theory about this whole MBK leading in game thing.
All right.
Right. Now, it's a little bit wild and crazy. Yeah. All right. I'm not saying it's a fact. Again, I feel like we need to put disclaimers over everything. Like when I theory craft and say, well, but what about this? Like, because we got all those fucking lunatics in the Global Offensive sub that, like, in every thread that vaguely mentions my name, right? Like, he said this and he was wrong. It's like, so it's a theory, right? But Happy's been getting fucking wrecked. And mad criticism for his in-game leadership shit lately, right? Like, he literally has. He's been called a fucking beta. He's been called tactically deficient. He's been called not a good man manager. He's been called a fucking choker. All of these negative things are being said as they go into this tournament. MBK, I think we can all safely say he's the mentally strongest player in that lineup by a long fucking way.
Sure.
This is a guy who in his spare time is doing union shit, organizing shit for players. He's the guy who says, you know what? I'm good enough to be a star in this team, but I'll be the support player because that's what we need, right? He's the guy with that level of fucking, mental understanding. Like, yeah, I might look bad, but fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what's best for the team. So I think Happy was under this pressure, and MBK comes out and goes, I am leading in this tournament. Any mistakes or fuck-ups are all on me. And actually, it's still Happy. It's still the same shit. The team's working still in the exact same way. And it looked like it was working in the exact same way. I didn't see any great changes tactically, but I think it was just to alleviate some of the pressure on Happy. I think if they win that tournament, they come out at the end and like, oh, Colin was a team effort. Happy is still our leader, Okay. I think it was just to get him.
I like the conspiracy theory. It's good.
Yeah, do you like it?
The problem as well, by the way, Rich, here's the other issue that's the major problem I have with this, is that the series they won against Fnatic, which was the really good one in this tournament, was literally Apex having like the best series of his entire fucking career. Like in 2 maps, he had a combined 51 kills as the entry fragger. Like that is not going to happen in Apex's life again. Never mind anyone else's life again. That's like once in a lifetime shit. And unfortunately, he used it on a group stage game. So if that's what it takes to be amazing, okay, great. But you can't be consistent like that. I mean, that's not going to happen very often. So you got to have that base. That's why I've criticized Fnatic, even the new Fnatic lineup, because like I say, they've had to pull some bullshit to get back into games. They don't get back into the game off the basis of like being a very sound team, a tactical team, doing correct saves. So it's hard to see a long-term future where you're a dominant team if you have these holes in your game. Now, what I gave to Fnatic, I already mentioned, is they do have like the champion's aura or the champion's mental strength or whatever. Envious don't have that, unfortunately. They can win an event because they got so much talent they can just wreck you out of the server, but that's not the same as being the guy where when you're having your fucking 6 out of 10 game, you somehow win the game. That's not what Envious does.
Right then, back to the news. TSM lineup. I know you've done a video on it. What I thought was hilarious was, why was this the fucking moment where every content creator wanted to do a video? Like, is this where we're at right now? Are we all going to start fighting over the same shit? Like, do we need to get a fucking content creators union going on where we all like agree, oh, Duncan's going to do that one, Moses is going to do that one? Because on the front page was like 3 videos. It was like Dust Moret was doing one, Moses was doing one, you're doing one. I was going to do one from the hotel room, but like, I just thought, fuck it, I'm just straight balling in fucking LA. Like, who gives a fuck?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, Rich. I mean, those guys did videos, and their videos out before mine, but, whose video's number one? So that's all I'm going to say, I mean, that's why we wouldn't need a union, okay, Rich? Not, because I'm very happy to let these guys, sort of eat some of the scraps on the table. Plus, if we did a union, you know how unions are, Rich. It'd end up a bit like that scene in The Hustler, where the criminal overlord guy takes like Paul Newman's character on, takes him on the road, and then there's a scene where he just goes, "Where's my money?" And he's just like, that's what I'd have to be like, okay, with like these scrubber guys to their video. So listen, best of luck to him. Keep hustling. Maybe one day you could be where I was about 5 years ago, and sort of my exhaust pipe. As I'm going to, well, maybe not my exhaust pipe. I may have misspoken there, Richard. Definitely stay the fuck away from my exhaust pipe. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
That's going to be on your tombstone, I think.
Okay.
But real talk, right? Just because we'll go off on a tangent for a bit. Like, I don't think you get enough credit. Like, everyone's going to be like, Richard Lewis is sucking his boyfriend's dick. Come watch it on Twitch.
Stay away from my exhaust pipe, though.
Yeah. Well, not even a finger. Come on, dog. Right. So anyway, Christ. So anyway, I don't think you get enough credit for sort of rebooting like the vlogs. Like we didn't really have that in Counter-Strike. Thorin's thoughts became a thing. Some people copied it a bit more whole cloth. Like you've got Clive's considerations. We all know what Clive considers. And I don't recommend it one little bit. But, people were like, oh, you're going to call it Richard's rants. Like Moses was saying to me while we were out in NA, he's like, oh, I really need to come up with a name for it. And I'm like, I don't know. the fucking burning bush or some shit. Ironically, the nickname of the girl that I kicked out this morning. But
You should
yeah,
just call it Creamy Cunt's Crack. Triple C.
It's like it's for real. It's a good thing. Like, you'll never get the fucking credit for it, but like, people weren't doing this shit. Now everyone's going to be doing this shit, and it's good. It's good. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather guys like Moses and Dust and fucking me and you and whoever else the fuck steps up was doing that, rather than like, oh hi, this is Travis. I've been following CS:GO for like a week now, so time for a video. Like, fuck that noise, right? You know what I mean? Like, these guys haven't got any credibility. So anyway, I'm just putting it out there. So do you believe, like, in your egotistical mind, in your private moments, none of these cunts would be making videos if it wasn't for me? Like, do you ever think that?
I mean, it's probably true when you look at the fact that they're doing like a similar sort of thing. I don't really think that, as in, like, I don't think it every time, like, oh yeah, you don't even do that. Because actually, like, for example, in the case of Moses, obviously, here's the thing. I can, if I want to, listen to the power I have, guys. I could reach out to Moses and ask his opinion or something, but I probably wouldn't have as in-depth a talk as whatever he's going to say in that video. So actually, I want to see what he says in the video and see if he has any good points that I haven't thought of, you know. So I think it is good. Also, in terms of just the idea that, like, maybe we'll like oversaturate the front page, I don't think that'll happen. Like, for example, one of the good things about YouTube that I learned was it actually is a way to circumnavigate Reddit. Like, yeah, your video blows up if it goes on Reddit, but once you start to get a certain number of subscribers, you get a certain number of views just from the subscribers. So the great thing is, if people like Moses, people like Yanko, people like Semler, etc., in the future make their own videos, one day, hopefully, we've all built up just the YouTube side of our brands. At least everyone gets success, even if there was like 5 that day and some of them didn't make top of the front page, you know. So I think in the end, it'll help everyone in terms of setting the content creators free a little bit. I do think in general, though, one thing I will agree with you is that one thing I have going for me is that when I started the series, I think I had more of a clear idea as to what my persona was going to be and how I was going to do the episodes. So as a result, a lot of mine probably flow better, or if you like that persona, you buy into it. Whereas unfortunately, some of these people, like, they understand the concept of what they're trying to do with the video, but maybe it's not as compelling, or they haven't got down the way to do the video yet. So some of those, unfortunately, I feel like they might not be as successful, and then they might just blame the format. Whereas maybe that person would be better off writing it as a column, you know, or maybe they'd be better off doing a show with someone where they had someone to play off and bring it out. Because one of the things I obviously have going for me that some of these people don't is I spent 10 years building up the side where I was trying to analyze the game and all that stuff, the very incredibly dry stuff that unfortunately is wicked information but not very interesting. Then I spent the last 3 to 4 years learning how to present it and have showmanship. Now, if you've only got one or the other, you're going to be kind of a bit up shit creek until you got the other. So it's not going to be as easy as people think. It's not just the case if you pop out a video and then you're going to have loads of success. But I hope some of these people do.
I mean, you are like, I gotta say, you are living like some mad fucking virgin though. Like, every day, like, just a video, he's done a video, hasn't he? He's done a video.
Why not?
What the fuck though?
Yeah,
like,
but here's the thing, Richard. In a way, I've made that baller because, you know, some of those. Okay, so go back in time to like late December 2014, early January 2015. All I'm going to tell you guys is the reason why some of those videos have me really close to the mic, like the reason why TSM, is because there's literally hot as fuck Korean girls in my bed sleeping. And I tell them, go to sleep if you want. I won't put the light on. But if you hear me talking, shut the fuck up and stay in the bed. And I just start recording videos, earning Skrilla after what Skrilla's for, setting that shit up. Digging trenches
with tentacles. So anyway, shit, man, I had another tangent I was going to get into, and I fucking forgot it. It was a good one too. Fuck it, like. But let's talk about the TSM lineup then. Where'd you rate this one?
Fucking appalling, mate. I mean, people are going to think sad. Here's the sad thing, Richard. In life, if anyone knows what you like and don't like, they will just be a moron right off all your opinions as, well, I know you don't like that, therefore that's the only reason you think it's bad, which is like, that doesn't always work, does it, guys? Like, at the end of the day, by that logic, I don't like TSM. That's what everyone's going to say, right?
Yeah.
Who has been called more of a fucking TSM CSGO fanboy than me over the last year? Everyone was telling me that there was shit the whole time. So if I only hated the org, why would I now suddenly go ham and say they are shit? It's because the team they've picked up now is fucking appalling. There's nothing about this team to suggest it will ever do anything of any significance, aside from going to the to E-League, put on a TSM jersey, collect a paycheck, and get bodied. That's it. I can't see what positives there are. They even build it themselves in a way that wasn't convincing. They were like, we have 2 veterans and 3 up-and-coming talents. It's like, I even broke that down. Like, they're not up-and-coming and they're not talents. So you don't. You do have 2 veterans. Okay, good. One of them, no one wants to play with, and the other one wasn't even a good player anyway. So there's unfortunately there's a team where there's nothing to kind of write home about. Like, they haven't got the right veterans where they're really going to be really solid. They haven't got the up and coming talents. So put it this way, if they had Kuster and Stewie K, that'd be very different. Then you could maybe say they've got something on. They don't even have that, mate. They've got just total randoms.
So the other thing I wanted to bring up, I have got it here in front of me.
I've got a question for you on this topic, though, because you're one of the few people who can answer this, because obviously you know more about the actual industry side of things than I do. Yeah. So as usual, all the fucking brain dead drone cunts who are TSM fans who have to like bow to the Lord Reginald of the TSM cult appeared in all these threads speculating about the business reasons as to why obviously this is a great thing that TSM's done and not that TSM's fucked up and blown a massive opportunity. So their whole speculations went like this, Richard. Oh, well, the CSGO team was asking for too much money, and then they've saved money on the CSGO team to put it into the League of Legends team, and then they've actually made a really shrewd business move because instead of paying the massive buyouts that you need for proper players, they've bought really cheap players to just get in the league, and then they're going to build from there. All these to me seem like absolute shit. Like, that's someone working in hindsight trying to make it. Is there any basis to any of that, do you think? Like, do you think they have in any sense saved money, or it was too much money for them? Like, essentially, here's the reason why I don't get it myself. Okay, my simple version goes like this: how has Fnatic, a team with way less money, kept their team? How has Virtus Pro kept their team? How's Envy? How's everyone kept their world-class team except TSM? If this was the case, that it's a money issue, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, for real talk, like, I don't think it's a money issue at all. I think TSM have got mad bank. Like, they got some of the biggest deals. Didn't they just announce a Geico deal as well, right?
I think something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, they go, fuck, I mean, the business side is what I do, right? So I'm telling you, TSM's got fucking spending power. Ain't got fuck all to do with any money. The reality is, like I say, everyone was scrambling to put together teams for fucking E-League, and I'm sure TSM reached out and talked to people. I know they reached out and talked to players. You know, everyone was turning TSM down. That's the reality. Like, I don't know why that's happened. I don't know if TSM were like not offering enough money, or you know, or whether it's a management thing. They're worried about fucking Reginald, you know, like, or some infrastructure shit, worried about being eclipsed by the League of Legends team. But I do know Counter-Strike players were giving fucking TSM a wide fucking berth. They had an opportunity to get a bunch of teams. Right? Okay, real talk, right? Behind the scenes shit, real talk, right? They were so balls deep in the idea of getting the ex-Conquest lineup that are now Optic. Like, everyone thought this was going to be a done deal. Those guys turned them down. So, I mean, how fucking baller is that? You fucking turn down TSM and get Optic to fucking sign you. Like, those guys, that's balls of steel. That's balls of fucking steel, considering some of the careers those guys have had. Yeah. So, like,
the greatest trick that Shazam ever pulled was making TSM and Optic believe he exists. He actually, he's like the opposite. Well, spoilers. So tune out if you haven't seen The Usual Suspects. It is a brilliant film. I'm now about to spoil it. Shazam is like the opposite. He's like, if actually Kaiser Soze actually didn't exist, and actually that cripple guy had made him up just the whole way like that, but he actually was crippled. No, he wasn't crippled, and he just, I can't remember the way around it is, but that's what he's like. That's what Shazam is like.
Yeah, brilliant. Definitely get it there. But anyway, so the other big story, right? FaZe. Well, we're talking about Optic and shit. Crazy stuff going on in the background here on this one, brother. I'm about to drop a story that's going to scorch the fucking earth, by the way. There's still some life in this old dog. Okay. But yeah, so the deals on G2 are going to be FaZe. That's happening. That's definitely happening. Big, sizable buyout from what I'm told. Not going to divulge the number, but this is a power play. They're picking up a very good team, I think, within the context the lay of the land right now, but they're also picking up an immensely popular team. And FaZe as a brand is fucking huge. It's huge. I think their like YouTube channel has like had more hits than all the esports YouTube channels combined in the fucking world ever. Like it's the level of exposure that they're going to bring is going to be ridiculous for an already popular team. So, what do you think about this pickup? What do you think about an organization like FaZe coming into CS in general?
I think the pickup's good because obviously, as I've mentioned on previous shows, there's almost no one who is an actually good team that you can pick up now. I mean, that's the whole reason why TSM are a joke, because Fnatic never lost their team, Virtus.pro never lost their team, Na'Vi never lost their team. Na'Vi don't even fucking pay them anything and they never lost their team. Everyone didn't lose their teams who had good CSGO teams. TSM did. So the idea you can get the team that was G2 or the team that was Titan is wicked if you have a chance to. So I think FaZe did the right move here. Also, I'd commend them for actually getting a good European team, not just getting another dog shit placeholder NA team. It's also wicked for esports that another big COD org's involved. Like, this is why it's almost surreal to me that CSGO is not only blowing up, but CSGO is the only game where every big org from every other game is trying to get in so hard that this is what could make the esports. Listen, as a player base, CSGO will never match League of Legends. Not least because it hasn't got like a bajillion fucking Chinese guys playing it. But as an esports side, it can surpass League of Legends. And this is why. Because everyone wants in. And what's even better is there's no Riot whipping their dick in your face telling you they'll take the team off you next month. So everyone wants into CSGO. That's why the whole rationale about Reginald saving money doesn't make sense. Because if anything, save money on the League of Legends team, mate. Fucking invest like a motherfucker in a CSGO.
Yeah,
we can have the best team in the world.
It's going to be franchised anyway. You can't. TSM can't lose. You know, so yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So I think it's wicked that they've come in. I mean, I obviously don't know anything about Call of Duty, so I don't know what the status is. I've heard of the team, but I've never followed the game. But if it's another team that can come in and pay proper salaries to top teams, I think it's great. Because even if they don't have the right team right now, and they have a decent team, it means in the future there's a salary there for someone who is a really good player. And we won't have to have scenarios where really good players live on the outside, and if they can't be in that one good team in their country, they're fucked. In terms of the actual team, unfortunately, the hype of that team's dead, basically. Like that whole shit after the major where they looked wicked and they were pretty decent with the first showing with AZ. That's kind of being killed by this last tournament because they were terrible. And then they had all these dog shit excuses like, oh, we haven't played in a few weeks. Like that's a good excuse. And they almost lost to fucking the Chinese team, CyberZen. And it wasn't a good state of affairs, mate. So the team's in disarray, but they do have the pieces to one day be a good team again.
Coming up to the 2 hour mark now. I've just had a look at the clock, so like I say, I'm going to start wrapping it up. One thing I did want to talk about on air with you, brother, right? Real talk now. When you're out in Belarus, you seem to trigger the Dota 2 community somehow. Several threads, of course, on Reddit, the Thinking Man's Playground, where they were discussing, why is Doran so unprofessional? That fucking word again. Why does he keep getting invited to these tournaments? And I think it was just because Sadicists, who did a great job, by the way, out there, they said, we've got Alliance and whoever else was coming up. And you went, oh, goody. That was all it took to trigger these bitches. Or did I miss some other shit?
No. There was also earlier on, Sadicist had made a joke, something like, I think he referenced Alliance and said, like, I hope they don't choke or something.
Right. I get it.
And by the way, here's the other thing. That alone wasn't enough to spur them on. But then one of our favorite cunts, analysts in Dota 2, who you could probably guess who it is, made a comment on that and how it was inappropriate. And then all you need is a famous person in your community to say something, and then every retard in the world laps it up. So that set off the gunpowder, as it were. To us on there, it was a very minor moment. In fact, I thought it was even like it was a decent bit of banter. And it's not even about our fucking game, so I don't know why it's unprofessional, but it wasn't a big deal to any of us, put it that way. But obviously Dota 2, who apparently don't have anything going on, went absolutely mental.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way, dog. Like, I don't even know who that fucking hard. Like I say, people don't realize like how little I give a fuck about Dota. I made a decision real early on. I watched the sort of rise of the fucking community, and I was always kind of monitoring it. And I was like, yeah, okay, well, I'm not a Riot fan. I don't like the way League of Legends is being run, but I can't stand esports fucking elitists, especially when it's not necessarily predicated on fact. And I had to eat that fucking shit about how like Dota 2 is the most complex game ever invented. Meanwhile, I'm watching fucking StarCraft players, just like they're looking over and going, lol. Like, you're fucking, what the fuck are you talking about? Right? So I never got on board with like just how fucking elitist and all that they were. But it's definitely been a change in the community. I don't know if it's predicated by Swedish success or whatever, but they've become like ultra politically correct. And I don't know why a fucking subreddit, a community of people who used to embrace Too Good, who was the edgiest motherfucker bar none, while me and you were still doing fucking, in the trenches field reporting, this guy was going and making jokes about, fucking transgender people, like fucking calling Sir Scoots a paedophile. And everyone, Too Good is so edgy and so funny, just lapping it up, right? Like, now you come out and go, oh, goody, you're the fucking worst human being who ever lived. I don't even get the logic.
Is, every one of Too Good's jokes would actually, by the way, they were funny. He's a very charismatic guy, but even his intended meaning of the joke would be the really offensive thing. The way I have gotten out of all my scandals is the intended joke is an implication of what I'm saying, but not what I'm actually saying. So by rules lawyerism, I should actually be getting out of it. But obviously, since I'm not as charismatic, I don't get away with it, do I? Because as usual in esports, it's never actually about what you do. It's about, do I like this person? Yes. Then I will defend everything they do to the death. Do I not like them? They should burn in hell for putting a comma instead of a full stop.
Yeah, it's true. Like, it really is true, dog. Like, the level of bias is just, it's just unbelievable. But, like, I don't know who this Nahaz guy is. I mean, like, he looks like he's the fucking Sir Scoots of Dota 2, right? Like, just rocking the old man gimmick or whatever the fuck. And I don't get why he's like still having little jabs now. Like he did a tweet. Why do analysis based on actual data when you can just make banal inflammatory statements and hope the resulting drama keeps you relevant? And then like
talking to there, by the way,
it's not aimed at any. I mean, I think a safe guess would be what this fucking guy obviously likes to do is he likes to make these passive aggressive statements. And basically, he pandered to the community. Like, I mean, look, he's like, other tweets are like, hey, I love you so much right now, Dota 2. And r/Dota 2, I love you. Obviously, he's a pandering ass motherfucker, right? Like, probably not got an actual backbone to express real opinions and what he really believes. But, like, yeah, I would say that's aimed at sustaining the drama about you going. Which I don't get. Like, I don't get. Look, you don't make content for Dota 2. You have, and people have like downvoted it based on that Swedish thing. Didn't he say that one thing once about a country not being particularly nice? Well, he is a racist, probably in the KKK, right? You know what I mean? Like, so that they just downvote your shit. So like, I know why you wouldn't waste your time making content for it. But like this whole fucking the community now are like. They're going, oh, CSGO is not deep. And this is why everyone who follows it is brain dead. We are so... Now Dota 2 fans are like, we're intellectually fucking superior to everyone. It's just unbelievable. Like, and they're just getting played like a fiddle by guys like this dude. Like, the irony of making passive-aggressive statements on Twitter with no one tagged, all vague, so you can back out and go, hey, it wasn't about you, bro, when it clearly fucking was. Right, like lacking the spine to be direct and then talking about how resulting drama keeps you relevant. All you're trying to do there is create drama.
The funny thing is...
have hypocrisy in 1920 when that fucker was born.
The thing is, what's funny is people don't actually know this in Dota 2 because obviously they're all such a bunch of cunts over there. I've never done a comment over there. I've never done an AMA over there. Never done anything in Dota 2 except do some interviews that were posted. But... I actually had never had any interest in League of Legends as a game. just when it got big as an esport, I started following it, and then I realized some of the cool factors. Like, for example, the whole world plays it, and I watched the best Korean players play it, and they were so fantastic. It even overcame the problems I had with the game. So as a game, if the massive esports side didn't exist, I would never watch League of Legends. I'd probably never played it. But actually, as a game, Dota 2 is one of the few esports I actually have as like just one of my fun ones. I don't follow it super close. I don't follow every team, but I will watch the finals of a big tournament. And I will check what the good games are and watch it just for fun. So naturally, I would have a natural affinity to Dota 2, but the community has just been such a shower of cunts at every possible turn that it's unreal. So I don't really give a fuck about them. And also, just as a note to end this on a funny note, Richard, I did have a little interaction with the Dota 2 community, though, that was good. So I know some of the Dota 2 guys anyway, like some of the casters and stuff, and most of those guys are pretty good guys and aren't cunts like this guy that you never see at events. So most of those guys are pretty good, but there was a Dota 2 team that I was talking to, and I thought, you know, in my own way, Richard, because the problem is when I get to know people, obviously then you'd think that's when I bust out the banter. No. I just come out the gate with banter to people, and then if they can fly with it, great. If not, then probably just stay clear of each other in future. So,
yeah, exactly.
So some Dota 2 players were talking to me, and I thought I'd bust out what would be a great ice-breaking joke to show that I know about Dota 2, but that I'm also, like, I acknowledge the things that have been fucked up in the past, and that, you know, I'm one of the guys, Rich. So what I said to them was, I've actually got a theory about what happened when you and Loader had your interaction, right? Which is that you have to realize before that had happened, Alliance had actually been doing pretty badly in their careers. Like, they'd done badly in that tournament, and it's been a long time since they were a really top team. And everyone was like, they'll never be good with this lineup of players again. But actually after that, they've had 2 tournaments that they won. They won this Star Ladder that they're at now, and they won a tournament before that. And they've been like resurgent in form. Now, there actually are some reasons, like that some of their heroes got patched, and the style of player that they were using was like kind of like buffed a little bit. But ignoring that, I said my theory as to what happened was when you were actually like wrecking Loader, obviously he temporarily passed over, like in a movie scene, you know, like an out-of-body experience, into the spirit realm. And in the spirit realm, he met like the shamans and the great elders of the earth. And I was telling this to these Dota 2 guys. And obviously those guys told him, like, Loader, it's not your time yet. You are still needed for an important mission on earth to bring hope to the human race. And so what they told him to do was they said, we will remove you of all your like hesitance and your like anti-clutch factor, and we will restore you fully to the prime of your powers. And he came back like Loader the White, like when Gandalf came back, and he came back and suddenly he couldn't lose. He couldn't choke. He's just winning every game. And so I said in many ways, I think that actually what we've discovered is you kind of have like the spiritual healing touch. And then the punchline to the joke was, because Alliance is back and they've done so well, famously, Na'Vi was the other great team that fell off and went to shit, right? And one of their star players is a guy called Havost. So the punchline to the joke I thought that they'd all love was I said, apparently, Havost has been stalking Richard, trying to find an event that has Dota and CSGO, and he's planning to get backstage if he can. So I thought they'd all be like, ha ha ha, what a brilliant joke. You understand both our communities. You have made light of an obviously awkward situation, and we appreciate that you like Dota 2. Instead, they all sat there like, and I think some of them were looking at each other, and I could sort of read what they were saying in their own brains, which was sort of like, get a load of this cunt. Who's this guy? And I was like, all right then, see you later, Dota 2. Like, and that's the end. Yeah,
just moonwalk out the fucking room.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck them. What a bunch.
It's good though, right?
Yeah, mate. I don't even know. Like, it's so, the whole thing's so, like, it still blows my mind to this day. Hi everyone, I'm the aggressor. Oops, I have lost after being the aggressor. Fucking now I'm the victim. Like, what
by the way, one thing I will say about Dota 2 that I do like is that because, like our StarCraft, they like essentially need drama to survive as a community. They don't mod their Reddit so that they remove stuff that's not related to StarCraft 2 and League and Dota 2. So by the way, Richard, you can now say hello, because definitely people on Dota 2 will be watching this part of the VOD now.
I was going to end this bit.
Okay.
Things that are going to get posted. Yeah. Why are we giving these guys any attention whatsoever? Because you can't fucking resist it. Because you got nothing else in your fucking shit lives. That's the answer to that question, by the way, when you post that one. And why did these people still get hired for events? Because we're good at what we do. There's the answer to that question. I would even go as far as say the best at what we do. So get fucked. Then
better than Dota 2, and I like the game. Like, Dota 2 has a couple of good analysts, but mate, we kill them on all fronts. Analysis, entertainment, camaraderie, lack of prima donna cunts. No
Yeah.
Australians. Actually, I think Toby Ward's all right. That was just a joke. There. It's all banter, harmless banter, Martin. I actually like Toby.
Harmless
Ever since we met him at ever since we met him at PGL, I've noticed he has chilled out a bit. He doesn't have any of the problems he had before. Yeah, he's become all right actually in my book.
Yeah. I'm glad we squashed that. It shows that progress is always possible.
Exactly. The Dota 2 community is like that ex who claims that she's over you and she was done with your shit, but then she gets really drunk and she calls you up because the dick's just too good. So that's you, Dota 2. r/Dota 2. You say you hate us, we're assholes, but you love that dick though, don't you? And I'm here I'll keep laying pipe as long as you keep opening your fucking mouth. So that's the end of my segment, Richard.
Right. Well, look, just before we do end, I think there was just one other thing. What was it? I didn't know if you wanted to talk about this, but I'm trying to preempt what people are going to tweet and stuff. So they just announced the broadcasting talent for DreamHack Leipzig. You got anything you want to say about that? Because obviously we ain't there.
It's not impossible that I'll work with DreamHack again, but that event wasn't for me anyway. Like, it's a smaller event. I don't really want to go to Leipzig, and so I think the talent looks good. It's people I like, so I think they'll all be good. But there's no big drama there, and if there is any actual real concrete change, I'll obviously say on the show in the future episode.
All right, there we go. So all handled. Any news you think we've missed? Anything we should hit quickly? Apart from the Dota 2 community.
I think we've ended strong.
Good. I like it. I like when we end strong. So there we go. That was, of course, another edition of By the Numbers. We've been obviously on the road a lot, working a lot. So the schedule's been a bit infrequent, a little bit messed up. But we're back now. We're going to be back to weekly. I'll probably still be doing it from America because I love it out here and I'm balling out of control. So I'm going to fucking just be straight living the dream. And yeah, so every Wednesday, regular time. Obviously, it's loads of fun to do the show. We get to do and say whatever we want. It's the best fucking CS podcast out there, and that's possible thanks to Alpha Draft basically letting us off a fucking leash. There's never any fucking drama. There's never any fucking tears. We just get to say what we think, express our opinions, and that's what we're into, right? Like, we totally like being able to do that without there being any drama or any politics or fucking people that maybe you're at ESPN right now trying to put pressure on people's careers and shit, right? Being weird behind the scenes. All we want to do is just express our opinions, and you can discuss our opinions. And Alpha Draft fucking let us do that without any political influence or bullshit. So if you want to support them, you go to alphadraft.com, you register an account, you start playing Alpha Draft, and you can win fucking money by picking fantasy players. That's it in a nutshell. Do you have a sick outro?
Me?
Yeah,
you mean
you're
Sam?
better at these than me.
I don't really have a sick outro. I mean, I would just say that I think Alpha Draft is a pretty good service. I think this is a wicked podcast, whereas all the Dota 2 podcasts and any other services, I mean, the only way I could describe them is if I had, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of relations, but if I had some really bad relation, I'd probably just bring him out at this point and say they're just like him. So, shout out to ESEA.
Yeah,
we'll end on that.
Edgy. Well, look, so thanks to Alpha Draft. Thanks to you. Thanks to Sam, the silent producer lurking in the background. Thanks to everyone who watched the show. We will see you next week. Peace out.